Of course she's fat. She bakes cakes all day. That's what I heard a woman whisper to another behind the counter, thinking I couldn't hear. As if my body was a logical outcome of sugar and butter. As if being fat made me less of a chef, less of a professional, less of a person. I had just placed the finishing touches on a 6-tiered wedding cake, a masterpiece that had taken me 19 hours to complete. My hands were still trembling from the piping bag. And yet, all they saw was my belly, my arms, my apron stretched over curves they assumed were shameful. That comment didn't surprise me. I'd heard it my entire life, from clients, from coworkers, from my own family. "You should be your own warning label," one of them once said. I baked joy. I served celebration. But I was always treated like a contradiction, as if someone like me, someone fat, shouldn't be allowed to be sweet. That day, I smiled politely. I boxed the cake. And I made a promise to myself. One day, they were going to see more than my body. They were going to see my name, my work, my fire. If you've ever been judged just for existing, this channel is for you. Subscribe and turn on the bell. Here, we tell stories that deserve to be heard. I was 6 the first time someone said the word fat in front of me like it was a warning. I had just brought cupcakes to school for my birthday. Homemade, pink frosting, little silver beads on top. My mom helped me bake them the night before, and I was so proud. I remember walking into the classroom with the tray and feeling like I had something special to offer, something that would make people like me. But when I passed one to my teacher, she smiled thinly and said, "Did you save one for yourself?" Then she turned to another teacher and added, "She sure doesn't skip dessert." They both laughed. I didn't. I didn't eat a single cupcake that day. I took them all home and told my mom they were too sweet. That was the first time food turned into shame. But not the last. My childhood was built around 2 things: being too much and trying to be less. My family wasn't cruel, but they were afraid. Afraid of what my body meant. Afraid of what people would say. Every visit to my grandmother's house came with comments wrapped in smiles. "You're growing fast." "Maybe just one helping, sweetie." "Do you really need another slice?" I started hiding snacks in my room. Not because I was hungry, because I didn't want to be watched while I ate. Because food, which once meant joy and togetherness, turned into a battlefield. But here's the strange part. I loved baking. I loved the chemistry of it, the ritual, the control. When I mixed flour and sugar and eggs, the world made sense. When I saw a cake rise in the oven, it felt like proof that good things could come from chaos. But I also learned early that my love for baking would always come with side eyes. When I brought cookies to school, people took them. But they looked at me like I was the joke behind the sweetness. Of course she bakes. She probably eats half the batch. That explains it. I learned to bake in silence. I didn't post pictures. I didn't share recipes. I stayed in the background. Let others take credit. I didn't want to draw attention to the contradiction of me, the fat girl making pretty things. I thought if I kept my head down and worked hard, maybe one day people would see the craft and not the body. But it never worked that way. In high school, I tried every diet I could find. I stopped baking for months. I started running in secret. I drank lemon water with cayenne pepper and told myself hunger was strength. I lost a little weight. People congratulated me. My mom cried. My dad called me his little winner. But I hated every second of it. My skin broke out. My hair thinned. I stopped getting my period. I was smaller, yes, but I was also miserable. And still, I wasn't small enough. I was never going to be small enough. College gave me a bit of freedom. I moved away, studied culinary arts. I wanted to specialize in baking, but my advisor steered me towards savory cuisine. "With your frame, pastry might not be the best match," she said. I nodded. I didn't argue. I was used to people deciding what I should and shouldn't be, but I never let go of the dream. At night, I watched baking videos. I practiced layer cakes in my dorm kitchen. I took odd jobs at bakeries and offered to work the early shifts just to be near the ovens. And in those quiet mornings, alone with my ingredients, I felt whole. It wasn't about food. It was about creation, about turning mess into beauty, about building something no one could take from me. But every time I tried to step forward, the world pushed me back. A customer once told my boss she didn't want me handling her birthday cake because I looked unsanitary. A man at a wedding whispered that I must be my own best customer. A coworker said I had a great personality for someone so big. I smiled through it all. I laughed when they did. But inside I was shrinking, not in size, in spirit. I began to believe I'd never be more than the joke behind the counter, that I'd never be respected in an industry built on perfection and aesthetics, that my body would always speak louder than my talent. And yet, I kept baking. I don't know why. Maybe because it was the only place I felt powerful. Maybe because I still believed that sugar could be a language. Maybe because I was too stubborn to quit. Whatever the reason, every cake I made carried a little of my story, a little defiance, a little hope, even if no one saw it yet. There was a night I almost quit baking forever. Not because I was tired, not because I didn't love it anymore, but because I couldn't take the looks, the whispers, the way people seemed to recoil when I walked into a room wearing flour on my shirt and softness on my body. I had just delivered a cake to a corporate event. 3 layers, all hand-painted, delicate sugar roses, lemon curd filling, a masterpiece. It was for a PR firm downtown, high-end, chic, cold. I carried the cake in myself because I didn't trust anyone else to handle it. As I was setting it on the dessert table, one of the executives walked by, phone in hand, and laughed. "That's the baker? No wonder the cakes are so rich." I pretended not to hear. I always did. I smiled. I adjusted the ribbons. I checked for smudges. But when I left, I sat in my car for 30 minutes and didn't start the engine. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel with hands that had just created something beautiful, and cried like a child. I cried for all the times I'd been reduced to a punchline, for all the effort that never seemed to matter, for the way my body entered every room before my name. I thought about stopping, about getting a job that didn't involve being seen, about hiding in an office behind a desk, somewhere no one would think to comment on my waistline or ask if I sampled too much of my own product. And worse than the comments were the moments when people tried to disguise their judgment as kindness. Have you ever thought about health coaching? My cousin tried this meal replacement thing and lost 40 pounds. You're so talented. Imagine what doors would open if you just took care of yourself. As if I hadn't spent my entire life trying to shrink. As if I hadn't already starved, punished, exhausted myself into the ground. No one saw that. They just saw frosting and fat and assumed I was lazy, out of control, undisciplined. Never mind the early mornings, the precision, the planning, the emotional labor of making joy for other people while carrying this ache inside me. The pain wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was just this quiet, persistent ache, like a leak in the ceiling you can't quite find. Some days I'd finish a cake and just sit on the kitchen floor, unable to move. Not sad exactly, just hollow. Like I had poured everything sweet into the world and kept none for myself. My body started to hurt in places I didn't expect. My knees, my back, even my hands. I told myself it was just age, but deep down, I knew it was the weight of carrying so much silence. One day I was working a small wedding. It was outdoors, summer, humid. I wore black to look more professional, even though the fabric clung to me in all the wrong places. I delivered the cake, helped serve, and stayed to help clean up. At one point, I bent over to grab a tray and heard someone behind me whisper, "Look at that. Maybe if she worked this hard on her body." I froze. I didn't turn around. I didn't cry. I just kept wiping the table. That moment stayed with me like a bruise that never healed. I started questioning everything. Why do I do this? Why do I put myself out there? Why do I give people the chance to cut me every time I show up in my own skin? I started to withdraw. I stopped sharing photos of my work. I turned down orders that required public drop-offs. I let my social media go quiet. I even skipped a food festival I had applied for months earlier. Just the thought of standing there while people judged me from behind their sunglasses made my chest tighten. I told myself it was just burnout, that I needed rest. But it was shame. A shame so deep I didn't even recognize it anymore. Just a low-level hum in the background of my life. Until one day, in the middle of this fog, I got an email from a client. A woman I barely remembered. She had ordered a cake for her daughter's birthday almost a year ago. In the message, she wrote, "You probably don't remember me, but my daughter still talks about the cake you made. She said it looked like magic. She said it made her feel seen." I read that line over and over. Made her feel seen, and something cracked, something tiny, barely audible, but real. I had forgotten what it felt like to matter, to leave something beautiful behind. I had been so consumed by proving I was more than my body that I had forgotten the body is not the whole story. The body is just the carrier, the hands, the heart, the fire. I wasn't ready to rise yet, but for the first time in months, I looked at my mixer and didn't feel dread. I felt possibility. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in months. I baked a cake just for me. No client, no deadline. No reason other than to remember why I started. It wasn't fancy. Just a simple vanilla sponge with cream cheese frosting and raspberry jam. But when I opened the oven and saw it rise, golden and perfect, something in me lifted. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just exhaled, like I'd been holding my breath for years. That night, I sat on the floor of my kitchen with a slice of that cake and whispered out loud, "I'm still here." It was a small thing, but small things, I've learned, can crack open entire lives. That cake reminded me I didn't need to prove anything to anyone to be allowed to exist. I didn't need to justify my body, my appetite, my joy. I needed to come back to myself, quietly, fiercely, with no apology. A few days later, I made another cake. This time, chocolate. Then another, and another. I started experimenting again, playing, decorating not for approval, but for expression. I began taking photos, but not for social media, just for me. Proof that I was creating, that I was rebuilding something invisible. My confidence? Maybe. My sense of self? Definitely. One afternoon, I looked at the wall above my prep table and realized how blank it was. So I printed some of those photos and taped them up. My own private gallery, my silent defiance, and then, without overthinking it, I posted one of them online. It was a tall strawberry shortcake with whipped cream flowers, bright, messy, unapologetic. I wrote, "Made this today, felt good." That was it. No hashtags, no filters, no story, just truth. A few hours later, someone commented, "Looks incredible. Do you take orders?" My hands shook as I typed back, "Yes, I do." That was the decision. Not just to take an order, but to return, to stop hiding, to let my work speak even if my body made people uncomfortable. Especially then. I made a vow. From now on, I would show up as I am, fully. No more black aprons to hide my shape. No more deflecting jokes. No more turning myself into a ghost so others could feel at ease. I decided to give my business a name that scared me a little, because it felt too bold, too visible. I called it Big Joy Bakery. Big, joy. Both words I had been taught to shrink. I registered the domain, made a simple website, uploaded some pictures, no bio, no face, just cakes. I figured if the work was good enough, maybe it could speak for me. But people wanted more. They wanted to know who was behind the sugar. So I started writing little stories under each post. This one reminds me of my grandmother's table. This one helped me through a hard week. This one felt like reclaiming something. The response was quiet at first. A few likes, a few kind comments. Then slowly, something shifted. Women started messaging me privately, not just about cakes, about shame, about body image, about being told they didn't belong in kitchens or in photos or in front of clients. One wrote, "You don't know me, but your cakes made me believe in softness again." That line stayed with me. Believe in softness again. It felt like a revolution. I decided I would stop treating my body like a liability. I wasn't going to hide behind the oven anymore. I would step into the front of the shop, be seen, be known, be full. I asked a friend who was a photographer to take pictures of me baking. I was terrified. I wore my favorite apron, floral, pink, unapologetically bright. I didn't suck in my stomach. I didn't tilt my face. I just existed. The photos weren't perfect, but they were real. I uploaded one with a caption. This is what a baker looks like. I held my breath, but the world didn't end. In fact, the post went viral. Thousands of likes, comments like, "Finally, someone who looks like me. I want to buy a cake from you just for this. You're making space for all of us." That moment changed everything, not because of the attention, but because I realized I'd spent years shrinking for people who were never going to make room for me anyway. So why not take up space? Why not be bold? Why not be fat and visible and good at what I do? I wasn't healed, not yet. I still had days where I flinched at my reflection, where old voices whispered, "You'll never be enough." But I had finally made a choice louder than those whispers. I had chosen to stay, to show up, to keep baking joy, even in a body they told me not to love. That decision, quiet, stubborn, real, changed everything. I didn't have a plan, just a name, a mixer, and a fire I hadn't felt in years. Big Joy Bakery started in my kitchen. Just me, a folding table, and a website with more hope than polish. I took every order that came my way, no matter how small. Cupcakes for a baby shower. A single-layer birthday cake for someone's grandmother. I poured everything I had into each one. Not just technique, heart. My hands knew what to do. But my mind? It was still full of doubt. Every time I delivered a cake, I braced myself for the stare, the hesitation, the quick glance from my face to my body, as if to say, "You made this?" But something unexpected started happening. People didn't flinch, they smiled. They asked for photos. Some even cried. "You don't know what this means to us," one mother said, after I made a cake shaped like her daughter's favorite book character. "You're not just baking," she added. "You're creating memories." I held on to that. Every time I wanted to shrink again, I thought about that word. Memories. I was building something people would remember. Not my body, my work, my energy, my care. Still, it wasn't easy. There were days when orders stacked up and I worked through the night. Days when the oven broke or deliveries were late or a cake collapsed in the box. Once, I dropped an entire wedding cake just 2 blocks from the venue. I stood there in the street, covered in frosting, trying not to sob. But even in that moment, I didn't think about quitting. I thought about fixing it, about showing up anyway, about proving, not to them, but to myself, that I could do hard things without disappearing. I began sharing more of the process online, Not just the perfect results, the mess too. The smudged piping, the burnt edges, the days I looked tired, unfiltered, real. People responded. Not with pity, but with connection. "I feel seen," they'd write. I didn't know someone like me could do this. I started getting invitations, podcasts, panels, local events, not because I was thin or trendy or photogenic, but because I was honest. And that honesty, I realized, was my brand. Not perfection, presence, not fantasy, reality. I began hiring help, part-time at first, women who, like me, had been told their bodies didn't belong in customer-facing roles. One of them, Jada, said on her first day, "I've never worked somewhere that didn't make me wear black and stay in the back." I laughed. "You can wear pink here," I said. "Hell, wear glitter if you want." We grew slowly, deliberately. I opened a tiny storefront in a quiet neighborhood, just enough space for a display case and a counter. I painted the walls coral and hung framed photos of cakes and smiling clients. No stock photos, only real people, real joy, real mess. I kept the name Big Joy, even when people advised me to change it. "It's not marketable," they said. "People don't want to be reminded of weight." But I wasn't hiding anymore. The name was the point, the rebellion, the invitation, the freedom. One day, a local food blogger walked in. She ordered a cupcake, then asked to speak with the owner. When I told her it was me, she blinked. "I wasn't expecting you." She didn't mean harm, but it still stung. I smiled anyway. "Most people don't," I said. She came back a week later with a camera crew. The segment went viral. "The fat baker who's changing the industry." I hated the headline, but I loved what came after. Emails from women all over the country, orders from out of state, DMs from teens learning to bake and looking for someone who looked like them. I started hosting small baking workshops, not for professionals, for anyone. Moms, students, grandmothers, even a retired truck driver who said he always loved pastry but never felt welcome in those fancy classes. In those sessions, we laughed a lot, made mistakes, licked spoons, talked about shame, talked about joy, talked about how healing it is to create something with your own hands, something soft, sweet, beautiful. I wasn't just building a business. I was building a space I had needed all my life. One where no one apologized for taking up space. One where frosting didn't mean failure. Where sugar wasn't sin. Where we could just be messy, loud, round, bold, and still be worthy. I knew we were onto something the day a little girl walked in, pointed to a photo of me behind the counter and said, "She looks like me." Her mom teared up. I teared up, and I thought, maybe that's the cake I've been baking all along, one no one can eat, one made of reflection, of resonance, of home. That's what I had built, not just a bakery, a mirror, a reminder, a place where sweetness belonged to all of us, no matter the shape of our bodies. It started slowly, a message here, a comment there. "I've never seen someone like you owning a bakery. Thank you for showing up exactly as you are. You make me feel like maybe I can do it too." At first, I didn't know how to hold those words. They felt heavy, too big for me. I was just trying to keep the ovens running and the frosting smooth. But those voices kept coming. Women mostly. All kinds. Big, small, young, old. From cities I'd never been to. They didn't just want cake, they wanted connection, a story, a reminder that they weren't alone. Some of them had never baked before. Others had stopped because of shame. "I used to love it," one woman wrote, "but after my third baby, I felt too messy to make anything beautiful." I wrote her back, Messy makes the best batter. We laughed. She signed up for my next class. I met people like Rosa, a grandmother who brought her teenage granddaughter to a workshop because she wanted her to see a woman who didn't shrink to be accepted. Or Janelle, a plus-size model who said she spent years being told she could either be beautiful or eat cake, never both. Or Malik, a single dad who baked his daughter's birthday cake for the first time after watching one of my videos. She said it was the best cake of her life, he told me. I think she meant the love, not the frosting. These stories filled me in ways food never could. They reminded me that what I was doing wasn't small, that sugar, in the right hands, could be rebellion, that frosting could be healing, that a bakery could be church. I began speaking at local schools, community events, body positivity panels. I was still nervous every time I walked on stage. The stares, the camera flashes, the fear of judgment never fully left. But now, the applause was louder. The support was louder. The echo of my voice wasn't mine alone anymore. People started tagging me in their own bakes. Inspired by I Big Joy Bakery. Some posted their first ever cakes, cracked and leaning but beautiful in their own way. Others wrote essays, poems. One woman even got a tattoo of a cupcake with the words, "Sweet anyway." That one made me cry. I realized I had become more than a baker. I was a permission slip, a signal. Proof that you didn't have to wait until you were thin or polished or acceptable to begin. You could begin now, as you are, because your joy is valid in every version of your body. Still, there were critics. There always are. People who commented things like, "Stop promoting obesity. No wonder diabetes is rising. You should lose weight before teaching others." I used to delete those comments. Now I let them sit there like sour frosting, visible but uneaten. I don't respond to hate. I respond with light, with more recipes, with more stories, with more women who walk through my door and say, "I thought I was the only one." I'll never forget the day a young girl named Eliza came in with her mom. She couldn't have been more than 10. Curly hair, chubby cheeks, nervous eyes. She stood at the counter and stared at the cupcakes for a long time. I knelt down beside her and asked, "Which one's your favorite?" She pointed to a pink swirl with gold sprinkles. I handed it to her and said, "You picked a good one." Her mom whispered, "She's been scared to eat in front of people." I looked at Eliza and said, "Did you know this bakery is made by a girl who used to feel that way too?" Her eyes widened. "Really? Really?" She took a bite. She smiled. That moment, that was the echo. That was the revolution. It's not about fame, or followers, or going viral. It's about one girl taking one bite without fear. One woman signing up for a class after years of shame. One dad decorating a cake and calling it love. The bakery became more than walls and ovens. It became a mirror for the ones who thought they had to wait to be allowed. I started putting up photos of my customers, not just the finished cakes, but them, holding them, smiling, crying, existing. We created a wall called "This is Joy," every size, every age, every background, no filters, just truth, just sweetness. I didn't build Big Joy alone. I built it with every voice that echoed mine, every message, every story, every person who dared to take up space and say, "I deserve celebration too." And that, more than any award, any headline, any viral moment, that is what I'm most proud of. Because the echo isn't just louder now, it's permanent, and it's everywhere. For a long time, I imagined what it would feel like to be seen by the people who once ignored me. To walk into a room, TV camera on me, press badge on my chest, perfect cake in hand, and lock eyes with someone who had once laughed behind my back. I wanted them to stammer, to apologize, to say, "We were wrong about you." I had this fantasy where the women who used to whisper, Of course she's fat, she bakes all day, would now stand in line to order from me. Where the advisor who told me not to go into pastry would ask me to speak to her students. Where the clients who once winced at my body would now repost my cakes on their stories and call me inspiring. I carried those scenes in my head like little movies, private, precise, emotionally satisfying. But none of them ever happened. Not exactly. The teacher never called, the coworkers never emailed. The woman at the wedding who whispered about my body, I never saw her again. There were no dramatic reunions, no redemptions, no apologies, just silence. And for a while, that silence stung. I had done the work. I had risen. I had become something undeniable. Didn't they owe me recognition? Didn't they owe me something? But slowly, almost without realizing it, I stopped waiting. Because while I was imagining those cinematic moments, real life was happening. A mom in my workshop baked her first cake from scratch. A teenager told me she wore a sleeveless dress for the first time after seeing my photo. A woman brought her daughter to the shop and whispered, "I want her to know she never has to hide." These weren't scenes from a movie. They were better. They were true. They didn't need revenge. They needed presence. Healing didn't come with applause or poetic justice. It came quietly, in the way I no longer flinched when I saw my reflection in the bakery window, in the way I stood tall during interviews, not adjusting my clothes every 2 seconds, in the way I could taste my own cake without guilt, just sweetness. There were moments, though, that surprised me. One day, I was doing a live TV segment, a local morning show, light and breezy. As I was setting up the final product on the table, the host leaned in and said off camera, "I used to follow you before you blew up. I remember your early posts. I wasn't always kind." I looked at her. She looked away. "I'm sorry," she added, barely audible. I nodded. Not bitter, not triumphant. Just calm. It didn't undo anything. But it didn't need to. That was the thing about healing. It doesn't ask for revenge. It asks for freedom. I didn't need them to feel bad anymore. I needed to stop carrying the weight of what they'd said, what they'd assumed, what they'd stolen from me in glances, in laughter, in silence. So I let it go. Not for them. For me. For the girl who once cried in her car after delivering a perfect cake. For the woman who once thought she had to earn the right to be seen. I began to see how much I had outgrown the need for confrontation. The bakery had become the response. The joy, the echo, the visibility, all of it was louder than any insult ever thrown at me. There was no scene, no dramatic full-circle moment, no final showdown with those who hurt me. Just me, in my own story, finally whole. And that was enough. More than enough. That's not to say it didn't still ache sometimes. I'd pass old classmates on social media and see their curated lives, babies, vacations, matching family outfits, and wonder if they ever thought of me. If they remembered the girl who brought cupcakes to class and left without eating one. If they ever saw me now and felt anything. But I've learned not to chase that, not to need it. Because when I walk into my shop and see a wall full of faces, joyful, diverse, real, I remember that my story didn't end with being judged. It began with reclaiming. And what I built from that pain, it's not for them. It's for the ones still hiding, still shrinking, still waiting for permission. I don't need to be invited into their world anymore. I built my own. And it's full of color and sugar and boldness. No apologies, no edits, just truth. My body never gave up on me, even when I spoke to it with nothing but cruelty, even when I blamed it for every rejection, every stare, every unkind word. Even when I starved it, punished it, cursed it in the mirror. It kept breathing. It kept showing up. It kept holding me through the nights when I felt like disappearing. I used to think my body was my enemy, that if I could just escape it, everything else would fall into place, the success, the love, the freedom. But what I've learned is this: my body wasn't the problem. The world's gaze was. The lies they told me about what beauty looks like, about what joy is supposed to weigh, about who's allowed to take up space. I carried so much shame for so long that I didn't realize the weight wasn't mine. It was theirs. Their judgment, their discomfort, their narrowness. But this body, this soft, round, scarred, capable body, it built everything. These arms mixed the batter. These hands piped the frosting. These feet stood for hours on concrete floors. This back bent to lift trays and hug customers and reach for more. This belly, this skin, this voice. They carried stories. They carried joy. I thought I had to fix myself before I could be loved, be seen, be successful. But the truth is, I just had to stop running from myself. I had to stop treating visibility like a threat. I had to believe that sweetness belonged to me too. That joy wasn't a reward for being smaller. It was a birthright. My body didn't betray me. It saved me. It carried me to this moment where I can look into a mirror, not with disgust or judgment or longing, but with recognition, with peace, with awe. Not because I lost weight, not because I changed my shape, but because I stopped measuring my worth in pounds. I stopped asking my body to make others comfortable. I started asking what it needed, and I listened. I moved it with love. I fed it with care. I dressed it with intention. I let it dance. I let it rest. I let it matter. And somewhere along the way, the mirror softened. The world softened. Or maybe I did. Maybe I stopped sharpening myself into someone else's version of beautiful. Maybe I stopped cutting myself down just to fit. Today, I still bake, still rise before the sun, still wipe sweat from my brow and flour from my face. But now, I do it with my head high, with my belly full, with my heart open. I've been on TV. I've spoken on panels. I've had my cakes featured in magazines. But none of that compares to the quiet victory of standing in my own kitchen, in my own skin, and feeling, finally, like I belong. Like I don't have to apologize for existing. Like I don't have to hide behind aprons or shadows or silence. I am not an exception. I am not an inspiration. I am simply proof that healing is possible, that joy is possible, that living fully, loudly, sweetly is possible. Not when you lose weight, but when you lose fear, when you choose yourself. Over and over and over again. I don't recognize the woman I used to be, not because she was fat, I still am, in many ways, but because she was small on the inside, afraid, invisible, always waiting. I am not waiting anymore. I am living, baking, laughing, loving, existing, fully, finally. If this story resonated with you, subscribe and leave your like. Here, we tell stories that matter. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to know how far our stories travel.